captive smile. The cold steel of the chains bit into my skin, the rough metal scraping against my wrists as I struggled to shift, to pull free. But there was no hope. I had tried for hours, days, weeks maybe, to loosen them, to escape. But the chains were too tight, the pain too real. My arms felt like they were about to fall off, the blood barely circulating anymore. The ragged breath in my chest was the only thing that reminded me I was still alive. I hadn't seen sunlight in what felt like forever. The only light came from a single flickering bulb that buzzed overhead, casting shadows that seemed to stretch across the room like crawling insects. The air was thick with the smell of mildew, decay, and something worse. Something unclean. But nothing compared to the smell of him. The man, the one who had taken me, who had kept me here for what seemed like an eternity, moved into my line of sight. His features were gaunt, his skin drawn tight over sharp bones, eyes sunken and empty, like he hadn't seen the light of day in years. His clothes were dirty, stained with something I couldn't identify. He smiled at me, his lips curling up in a twisted expression of glee. "Smile," he said, his voice rough and hollow, as though it hadn't been used in years. "You're on camera." He raised the camcorder in his hands, the lens focusing on me with a mechanical click. The lens was cracked, scratched, a reminder of how long it had been here, of how long I had been here. I had no idea how long I had been chained to this filthy mattress, no idea how long I had been his plaything. Days, weeks, my mind couldn't keep track anymore. Time had lost meaning. His laugh echoed around the room, dark and hollow. "You were so beautiful when I first found you," he mused, slowly pacing around me, his shoes scraping against the grimy floor. "So fresh, so full of life. But now you're just a broken thing." I gritted my teeth, fighting the nausea that rose in my throat. I wanted to scream, to fight back, to tear into him with everything I had. But the chains kept me tethered, like a beast in a cage, helpless. He knew it. He liked it. I tried to push the fear out of my mind, tried to block out the image of his leering face as he moved closer, his fingers tapping the lens of the camcorder. He was savoring it, savoring every second of my humiliation. "Look at me," he whispered. "Look at me and smile. It's your last chance to make a good impression on your audience." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat like a hammer against my ribs. My body ached from the strain of the chains, but worse was the suffocating helplessness. He had turned me into something for his amusement, something for the camera, something he could hold power over. The dirty rag he shoved into my mouth kept me from screaming, kept my voice muffled as I twisted and bucked against the chains, fighting in vain. But nothing would make it stop. His gaze was cold, calculating, a predator savoring his catch. The camera clicked again, the shutter freezing me in place, capturing every moment of my suffering. He lowered the camcorder just enough to look at me directly, his sunken eyes filled with malice. "You're going to be perfect," he said, his voice a dry rasp. "Perfect for them, for the people watching, for the ones who will pay to see you suffer, to see you beg, to see you die." I could barely hold back the tears. They burned in my eyes, but I refused to give him the satisfaction. He wanted my fear. He wanted my weakness, and I wasn't going to give it to him. But I could feel the cracks starting to form. My mind, my resolve, everything was starting to break. His eyes flickered to the camcorder, then back to me. "You don't know how long I've waited for this," he murmured almost to himself, "for the perfect shot, the perfect moment." He moved slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the anticipation. Every step he took, every breath he drew, seemed to drag out the inevitable. And then, without warning, he swung the camcorder down, bringing it close to my face. The lens focused on me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw the reflection of my own face. It was a mask of pain, of exhaustion, of something else, something far darker than I had ever known. He smiled at me, his lips curling wider. "That's it. That's what they want to see." And I realized in that moment that I would never escape. There was no rescue coming. There would be no happy ending. The world outside had forgotten me, and inside this room, I was just a thing to be used, filmed, exploited. And in that moment, I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to smile, but he'd never get it. Not from me, not ever.